Chapter 599, K. Baker's Cat by Mark Twain. One of my comrades there, another of those victims of 18 years of unrequited toil and blighted hopes, was one of the gentlest spirits that ever bore its patient cross in a weary exile. Grave and simple Dick Baker, pocket miner of Dead Horse Gulch. He was 46, gray as a rat, earnest, thoughtful, slenderly educated, slouchily dressed and clay-soiled, but his heart was finer metal than any gold his shovel ever brought to light, than any, indeed, that ever was mined or minted. Whenever he was out of luck and a little downhearted, he would fall to mourning over the loss of a wonderful cat he used to own, for where women and children are not, men of kindly impulses take up with pets, for they must love something. And he always spoke of the strange sagacity of that cat with the air of a man who believed in his secret heart that there was something human about it, maybe even supernatural. "I heard him talking about this animal once," he said. "Gentlemen, I used to have a cat here by the name of Tom Quartz, which you 500? Oh, took an interest in, I reckon, most anybody would. I had him here 8 year, and he was the remarkablest cat I ever see. He was a large gray one of the Tom specie, and he had more hard, natural sense than any man in this camp, and a power of dignity. He wouldn't let the governor of California be familiar with him. He never catched a rat in his life, pared to be above it. He never cared for nothing but mining. He knowed more about mining, that cat 999, than any man I ever see. You couldn't tell him nothin' about placer diggins, and, as for pocket mining, why he was just born for it. He would dig out after me and Jim when we went over the hills prospectin', and he would trot along behind us for as much as 5 mile if we went so fur. And he had the best judgment about mining ground, why you never see anything like it. When we went to work, he 500 scatter a glance around. And, if he didn't think much of the indications, he would give a look as much as to say, "Well, I 100 have to get you to excuse me." And, without another word, he 500 hissed his nose into the air and shoved for home. But if the ground suited him, he would lay low and keep dark till the first pan was washed, and then he would sidle up and take a look. And if there was about 6 or 7 grains of gold, he was satisfied. He didn't want no better prospect than that, and then he would lay down on our coats and snore like a steamboat till we 500 struck the pocket, and then get up and superintend. He was nearly lightnin' on superintending. Well, by and by, up comes this your quartz excitement. Everybody was into it, everybody was pickin' and blastin' instead of shovelin' dirt on the hillside, everybody was puttin' down a shaft instead of scrappin' the surface. Nothin' would do, Jim, but we must tackle the ledges, too, and so we 999. We commenced puttin' down a shaft, and Tom Quartz he began to wonder what in PG 146 the dickens it was all about. He hadn't ever seen any mining like that before, and he was all upset, as you may say. He couldn't come to a right understanding of it no way, it was too many for him. He was down on it too, you bet you, he was down on it powerful. And always appeared to consider it the cussedest foolishness out. But that cat, was always agin newfangled arrangements. Somehow he never could abide 'em. You know how it is with old habits. But by and by Tom Quartz began to get sort of reconciled a little, though he never could altogether understand that eternal sink-in of a shaft and never pannin' out anything. At last he got to common, down in the shaft hisself, to try to cipher it out. And when he 500 get the blues, and feel kind o' scruffy, and aggravated and disgusted, knowin', as he 999, that the bills was runnin' up all the time and we warn't mackin' a cent, he would curl up on a gunny sack in the corner and go to sleep. Well, one day when the shaft was down about 8 foot, the rock got so hard that we had to put in a blast. The first blast we 500 ever done since Tom Quartz was born. And then we lit the fuse and clum out and got off 'bout 50 yards, and forgot and left Tom Quartz sound asleep on the gunny sack. In 'bout a minute we seen a puff of smoke bust up out of the hole. And then everything let go with an awful crash. And about 4 million ton of rocks and dirt and smoke and splinters shot up 'bout a mile and a half into the air. And by George, right in the dead center of it was old Tom Quartz a-goin' end over end, and a-snortin' and a-sneezin' and a-clowin' and a-reachin' for things like all possessed. But it warn't no use. It PG 147 warrant no use. And that was the last we see of him for about 2 minutes and a half, and then all of a sudden it began to rain rocks and rubbage, and directly he come down kerwhoop about 10 foot off F1000 where we stood. Well, I reckon he was p'raps the orneriest lookin' beast you ever see. One ear was sot back on his neck, and his tail was stove up, and his eye winkers was singed off, and he was all blacked up with powder and smoke, and all sloppy with mud and slush F1000 one end to the other. Well, sir, it warn't no use to try to apologize. We couldn't say a word. He took a sort of a disgusted look at hisself, Then he looked at us. And it was just exactly the same as if he had said, "Gents, maybe you think it's smart to take advantage of a cat that ain't had no experience of courts minnin', but I think different." And then he turned on his heel and marched off home without ever saying another word. That was just his style. And maybe you won't believe it, but after that you never see a cat so prejudiced against quartz mining as what he was. And by when he 999 get to goin' down in the shaft agin, you 500 been astonished at his sagacity. The minute we 500 tetch off a blast N, the fuse 500 begin to sizzle, he 500 give a look as much as to say, "Well, I 100 have to get you to excuse me," and it was suppressin' the way he 500 shin out of that hole and go for a tree. Sagacity? It ain't no name for it. 'Twas inspiration. I said, "Well, Mr. Baker, his prejudice against quartz mining was remarkable, considering how he came by it. Couldn't you ever cure him of it?" Cure him? No, when Tom Quartz was sought once. Mark Twain.